Hey, I'm Susan Palmer of Lead Cat Press, and this is my weekly studio update. I did something a little, I don't know, maybe over the top today. I broke this video into 7 different sections, and I wanted to kind of create the idea that I'm teaching you all a lesson here. And in my private studio, each student has a practice log / assignment sheet with these different sections notated. And, I try to cover most all of those things each week so they get a well-rounded music education. So there's technique, reading, chords and groove, scales, theory, a tune, and then an other section. So the other section is a bonus pro tip that I compiled for you guys. What to do if your gig bag breaks is the topic. So for the technique, I cover what I call wobbly thirds. For the reading studies, I cover an exercise from my book, The Guitar Lesson Companion. For the chords, I'm linking together some caged chord shapes. And for the scales, let's see, I went over some G melodic minor scale patterns up the neck. And for the theory, I covered diminished chords, and the tune that one of my students was working on this week was Take 5. So you can use the chapters below to link to the section that you're interested in, or, just watch the whole thing. I hope you enjoy it. I hope my students find it helpful, and thanks for tuning in. The technique exercise I want to show you this week is based off of thirds, and I'm in the key of C, and normally thirds sound like this. And the wobbly thirds, as I call them, or thirds with a twist, sound like this. And what I'm doing is I'm prefacing each group of thirds, each pair of thirds, with a note a half step below the first. So instead of C, E, I'm playing B, C, E. Instead of D and F, I'm playing C sharp, D, F. And I do that with each one of these pairs of thirds. So I'm going to demonstrate how I play thirds with a wobble to them in each one of those caged scale positions in the key of C. I'm going to show you a couple lines from a reading study out of my book, The Guitar Lesson Companion Volume 1, which covers reading studies in all 12 positions, plus chords, scales, theory, all that stuff. But this one is in 7th position, and it's utilizing just the top 4 strings on the guitar. I always like to kind of build up all the material that students are learning so that, you learn it in a progressive manner, which means we have a solid foundation that you carry with you the whole way through. So let me put the awesome backing track on and give it a go. with this, you know, you're not only learning the notes on the page, but you're learning the fretboard. And then the way that I've designed a lot of these reading studies is to utilize chord tones. And chord tones are things that I really like to teach my intermediate advanced students. I have a very thorough, logical, progressive way to do that, which is in volume 2 of my Guitar Method series book. Anyways, this one I just wanted to show you how awesome it sounds. If you're looking for a good reading book, check out the Guitar Lesson Companion Volume 1. All right, let's link up some caged chords. Here's G7 and an E string root, followed by G7 and a D string root, and then C7 and an A string root, C7 and a G string root. So once I teach the cage system, that's usually one of my go-to jams for students, just so that they can kind of get the facility for those dominant 7 chords. So what it deals with is the octaves that we've got on the strings and the different chord shapes that we can play with those different root notes. So because we've got a G here, that means we could play an E string root or a 6-string root G7 chord. Because we have a G here, we could play a D string or a 4th string root G7 chord. So those two, they link up. They kind of visually, they look like they're a whole step apart, but it's because that octaves, they're actually the same chord. This is a C right here, and then on the A string, 3rd fret, and then I have another C on the G string. And so what that means is that we can play an A string root C7 down here, and using this G string root, we can play a C7 using a G string root up there. So one of my students needed to learn his melodic minor scale patterns for this week, and I'm going to show you my fingerings for a G melodic minor scale up the neck. Melodic minor is the same as a major scale, except it's got a minor 3rd. So for the key of G, our notes are going to be G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F sharp, G. When I'm playing these, I always like to go to the highest available note in the pattern and then all the way back down to the lowest note in the pattern, and then I'll end on the lowest root note available. So I'm going to go up to A, and then G, F sharp. The next pattern is a 4th string root. That's how I identify it, but the lowest root note that you can play is on the 6th string. So I've got G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Gonna finish up the pattern. The next one is a B string root. Sometimes we think of this as a C shape pattern. My lowest root note is on the A string for this. So I've got G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B flat, C, D, in that pattern. I go all the way down, and then I end on that low root note. It's just something I like to do as a guitar player, because our scale patterns sometimes extend a little bit beyond root note to root note, and those notes are important to know. Next one is the A string root, or the 5th string root. G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B flat, C, D, E. And then my last one is the G string root. G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F sharp, G. The music theory that came up this week had to do with the tune Like Someone in Love, and it was that section where it goes from D7 to D sharp diminished 7. Nice little chromatic movement there. And my student asked, how do you play the D sharp diminished 7? And I could have pointed him to my book, The Guitar Lesson Companion Volume 1. I believe it's page 144 that has some different options for those diminished 7s. But I wanted to break it down just a little bit in terms of some music theory, or kind of a music theory cheat that you can use. So D7, I'm playing with an A string root or 5th string root. There's my D, and it's just a dominant 7 chord. And to turn that into a D sharp diminished 7 chord, all you need to do is increase that note D on the 5th string to D sharp. And you can keep that A in there, but I prefer not to. I like that F sharp on top. That's just my personal preference because we already have an A in there. So I like that F sharp.